I'd like to call to order this September 11th, 2017 regular meeting of the Columbus Municipal School Board. We do have a quorum present here tonight. Before we get started, we'll have our invocation. Mr. Sparks, if you would offer invocation, followed by the pledge.
Let us bow. Dear Heavenly Father, we come now once more again, Lord God, just to thank you for another day. Father, we pray and ask now that you would just bless this meeting. We also want to thank you, Father, for those things that you have already done, those things that you're currently doing, and we also want to thank you, Father God, for those things that you're about to do in this district. We also pray that if there be anything that's unlike you on this evening, Father, we ask that it will be removed so that we may conduct things in a manner which is pleasing in your sight. We ask these and many other blessings in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please rise with me. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would like to thank everyone for being here this evening. Board, before us we have tonight's agenda. There are a couple of modifications that I would ask that we make to it. If you look at tonight's agenda, under item number 5, we have listed as B, consideration to approve transfer of rounding amount into GO bond or general obligation debt service fund. I ask that that be relocated under heading 3, school board minutes, under item C. It'll be listed as C1.
Mr. Spears,
Yes.
could I get you to say that again?
Yes,
'Cause item
yes.
5, Roman numeral 5 is open forum.
Let's see. Roman numeral 6, excuse me. I
Okay.
apologize.
Now
6B
B,
is consideration for approval of transferring the rounding amount.
so that's being moved to.
That's being moved under 3, which is school board minutes. And under C, where it says update regarding general obligation bonds, just to group those different items together. So it'll become C1 under that heading, under 3. And then we also have under number 7, Office of the Superintendent, under B, there's a number 10, and it's consideration to approve payment of invoices for cost of issuance of general obligation bond refunding. And I'm asking that that be relocated under the heading of 3C, number 2.
So is update regarding general obligation bonds, is that C1?
We can put that as C3.
Okay, so that's C3,
Yes,
and the other is C1 and C2.
that's correct.
Okay.
Yes. And then I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that we also, Dr. Hickman, a student matter that we need to tend to. So as we had made a change to our forum format, I'm asking that an executive session be listed under 3, school board, and it become A, or let's see, it becomes A1. And then the minutes becomes A2, A3, A4, A5. We would only just need to put it down for one thing.
Yeah, we can do the executive down at the bottom, can't we, the executive session, just.
We're only going to do the student matters in this. Only the student matters in this
Right.
first.
So is that moving A and B of Roman numeral 10 to the front? Is that what that is?
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct. So those would be under 3, and they would become 3A. 3A, can we put it 0?
Well, you could put 3 little a, little b,
Okay,
because it's under 1 executive session.
okay, so
right?
let's do that then. So little, so 3A and then little a, 1 will be closed determination. And then little a, 2 would be executive session with those under it.
That's fine.
And then we would come back and we would have 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Probably gonna have prayer meeting with you when we do the minutes.
Okay, that's fine. All right. So, board, do you understand the changes to tonight's agenda?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I need a motion to, yes. Okay. All right. So I need a motion for approval of tonight's agenda.
So moved.
It's been motioned by Mr. Sparks. Do I have a second?
Second.
Has been seconded by Dr. Shoemake. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. Now we move to item number 3, which is the school board minutes and information. We go to A1, which is closed determination. I need a motion for approval.
So moved.
Has been motioned by Mr. Sparks. All in favor, please signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. We'll be out shortly to make the announcement. Thank you. I want to welcome everyone back. Thank you very much. We did go into executive session for 2 items. There was a motion by Mr. Sparks and a second by Dr. Shoemake to go into executive session for those 2 items. It passed 3-0. Then we had 2 different student matters. On the first, Dr. Shoemake made the motion. Mr. Sparks made the second. It was 3-0. The second item, Mr. Sparks made the motion. Dr. Shoemake made the second. It was 3-0, and then returned to regular session, which is what we're up to at this point on the agenda. It was Mr. Sparks made the motion, and Dr. Shoemake made the second, and that passed 3-0, which brings us to our next item on the agenda, which is item number A2, which is the board minutes. And so, board, I'd ask that we take all the minutes at one time. I need a motion for approval.
So moved.
Has been motioned by Dr. Shoemake. I'll make
This is to
the
approve
all the minutes.
2, 3, 4, and 5A.
That is correct. Yes,
Okay.
sir. So I will make the second. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. Now we go to item B, which is trustee travel and discussion. At this point, board, unless there's something you have, I don't believe there's anything we have to discuss tonight. I know we do have travel coming up in November, but not at this meeting. Now we go to our next item, which is item C. And if you remember, we have C1, C2, and C3 under this section. C1 is the consideration for approval of to transfer the rounding amount into general obligation debt service fund. I need a motion for approval.
So moved.
Has been motioned by Mr. Sparks. I'll make the second. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. Now we go to C2, which C2 is going to be consideration to approve payment of invoices for cost of issuance of general obligation bond refunding. I need a motion for approval.
So moved.
Has been motioned by Dr. Shoemake. I'll make the second. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. Now we go to C3, which is an update regarding the general obligation bonds, and just kind of final details of the completion of the process, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Dunn.
Yes, sir. Trustees, Dr. Hickman, and the public, I'm happy to report that we presented the petition to the Chancery Court and, of course, gave the applicable notice to the public. There were no complaints whatsoever, and the judge signed the approval, the order approving the bonds, so it has been done, it's over, and we're complete with the judicial part of it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dunn. And as far as the transaction aspect of it, this concludes all aspects of the issuance of the refunding of the bonds. So that is something we can be proud of, that is behind us now, and we're moving on. Looking at item D, it's just an FYI, it's the local request. The City Council took up our request we had submitted to them for our request for funding, and in approving their own request and budget. As you can see, those attached documents there, you know, all of that is being finalized as far as our request. So we are done with respect to the local request. Now we go to E, which is discussion of dental services provided to students / request for proposal. Dr. Hickman, that's an item that I'd ask to be put on the agenda tonight, because I believe in the past couple, 3 years or so, we've had those services provided in the school district, and for some reason, you know, they've stopped. And so I think it was something that students were getting benefit of. So would it be something that we could ask your administration to do a request for proposal and see what entities would like to still continue those services or render those services to the students? So if you would just maybe,
Yes, sir.
and so be able to maybe bring that back to us at the next board meeting, if that would be something you could work on.
Yes, sir.
All right. And board, what, you have any questions or anything about the request for proposal? Okay. All right. Now we go to our next item, which is 3. Let's see here. F, which is consideration to approve moving our November the 13th meeting from 6 p.m. until 8:30 a.m. that day. And that is just as we've done in years past, because we have our MSBA fall meeting that starts at 2 o'clock that afternoon in Jackson. And so I need a motion for approval to change that meeting time.
So moved.
It's been motioned by Mr. Sparks. Do I have a second?
Second.
Has been seconded by Dr. Shoemake. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. Now we go to tonight's consent agenda. We have dates to remember, academic dates that are listed here, also athletic events and dates that are published there under 4A2. And then we go over to the second page, and we have our next board meetings, which we have our board review meeting that will come up on October the 4th at 11:30 at Franklin Academy. And then we'll have our October the 10th, 2017 regular board meeting here in this boardroom at 6 p.m. Then we have the consideration to approve the agreement between Cook Elementary School and the Mississippi Food Network backpack program, and then the consideration to accept a donation from Donors Choose for Cook Elementary School. And Dr. Hickman, would you like to chime in just a little bit on the Donors Choose as to what that's about?
Yeah, I want to bring up Dr. Wilcox to explain.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Dr. Wilcox. Good evening.
There we go.
Yes.
Good evening, School Board, Dr. Hickman, Mr. Spears. The donation was for a Donors Choose project that our music teacher presented, and it was drumming up excitement at Cook Elementary. And she was very surprised that within a week, all of the donation was funded. You have the distribution sheet that shows the local donors that contributed to the Donors Choose, and there were many people that have long supported Cook that have made contributions to that, and those will be used to expand the resources for the activities that we have at Cook Elementary. So we're very proud to have those 9 Turbano drums that have been added to our resource.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that, and congratulations as well.
Thank you.
Dr. Hickman, do you have any other comments? Okay. So, Board, we have our consent agenda items here for approval. I need a motion for approval.
So moved.
Has been motioned by Mr. Sparks. Do I have a second?
Second.
Has been seconded by Dr. Shoemake. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. Now we go to open forum, item 5. I don't believe we had anyone sign up for open forum tonight. Did we?
Pam, do you know if anyone had the sheet sign up open for?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Lenore. So that takes us to item number 6 on the agenda, which is Office of Business Management. Board before us tonight. If you remember, B was actually removed and was listed under C. So we have consideration to approve a FY17 amended budget. And if we could have Ms. Holmes, please, give us some understanding to it.
To Mr. Spears, Chairman of the Board, Board of Trustees, Dr. Hickman, what you have before you are the final closing numbers for FY17. I am proud to say that we are closing this year with a 22.23% fund balance. The better than expected fund balance is being driven by increase in ad valorem collections, which was approximately $400,000. Remember that the actual booked collections are based on accrual basis and not cash basis like the request would. We also had a better than expected monies from TVA, which was $150,000 more than we anticipated. $100,000 more for indirect costs due to the increase in spending for child nutrition, $400,000 from as a transfer into district from 16th section for the expenditures for the roof repairs. So that drove our revenues for 11-20. Again, we're closing with $6 million fund balance. That's 22% fund balance, which is far better than we expected. And also we're closing with $7.5 million in cash at June 30th. And this is the first time I do want to say that I'm proud to say proud of my staff. We have now closed the books first time in 5 years this quickly. So I'm proud to say we've done that, submitted our information to MDE, and now we're officially closed, and MDE has accepted and approved the report that we submitted for our financial information for FY17.
Excellent. Well, thank you. I think that statement stands alone. That's great. Thank you very much for your team working on that, and Dr. Hickman for helping with that. And, that's a good start into this year. So certainly we're making movements in the right direction. So thank you. So, Board, based off of the information that's provided to us and the other information we've been able to review, I need a motion to approve the FY17 amended budget.
So moved.
Has been motioned by Dr. Shoemake. I'll make the second. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. Now we go to our next item, which is consideration to approve our financial reports. We have the monthly financial statements report. We have the monthly revenue budget. We have the monthly expenditure budget report, and the certification and summary of reconciled bank statements. So, Board, I'd like to take all these, if we could, as just one motion. I need a motion for approval.
Mr. Spears, may I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Is this now B? Did we read a letter?
It is, yes, sir. It's this is B, and then you have 1, A, B, and C, and then 2, 3, 4 under
Okay.
B.
Thank you.
And only the first, 1, A, B, and C, and then 2, 3, and 4 have to be, as what Dr. Waldrop said, should be approved at each meeting. And so, any questions, or do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Has been motioned by Mr. Sparks. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Dr. Shoemake. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. Now, Board, we go to item number 5, which is the monthly ad valorem tax collection analysis. We've been able to review the document. Are there any questions for Ms. Holmes or Dr. Hickman? Now we move to the number 6 athletic events report. Any questions for Ms. Holmes or Dr. Hickman? And then finally, under this section, we have item 7, which is consideration to approve fixed asset disposal. I need a motion for approval,
So moved.
and I'll make the second. And this is B7. All in favor, please signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. Now we go to item C, which
Could you
is
tell me, who made the motions? Did Sparks? Okay.
Sparks, and I made the second.
Okay.
Yes. Now we go to item C, which is the consideration to approve the claims docket. I need a motion for approval to pay the bills.
So moved.
It's been motioned by Dr. Shoemake. I'll make the second. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. Now we go to the Office of Superintendent. And we go, say that again, Dr. No travel, okay. All right, and so there's no travel to report at this time. Now we go to B, which is Superintendent Recommendations. Board, if we may, B1 and B2 are basically the same thing. And Mr. Dunn, since there's a job description and a salary scale, we can take those as one motion. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so Board, if we could, we just take both of those items, B1 and 2, under 7 as one item. I need a motion for approval.
So moved.
Has been motioned by Mr. Sparks. I'll make the second. Any discussion?
Yes, actually, this is for someone working with Spanish language students, right?
Yes, we always had a
How many-
position that we consulted with, and we still paid them out of federal. But because of the influx of our English language learner students, and the requirement that we need for twofold, one is for tutoring and the other is for translation with parents and those kind of things. So we were able to have the money in the budget that was allocated for that specific position. It's an
And-
at-will position.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And my question was, do you remember how many Spanish language students we have in
I
the
don't.
district?
That's a good question.
Okay,
I don't.
that- I can find it out.
I can follow up with you though.
Okay.
As well. Thank you.
Thank you both. There's any other discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. Now we go to item 3, which is consideration to approve staff personnel items. I need a motion for approval.
So moved.
Has been motioned by Dr. Shoemake. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Mr. Sparks. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. Now we go to item 4, which is consideration to approve the updated 2017-18 supplements for additional duties. I need a motion for approval.
So moved.
Has been motioned by Mr. Sparks. I'll make the second. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. Now we go to item B5, which is consideration to approve after-school clubs personnel. I need a motion for approval.
So moved.
Has been motioned by Mr. Sparks. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Dr. Shoemake. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. Now we go to the consideration to approve lease agreement between Columbus Municipal School District and R.E. Hunt Museum and Cultural Center at no charge. Board, I need a motion for approval,
So moved.
and I'll make the second. Discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. Now we go to item 7B7, consideration to approve Mississippi Tennis Association and Golden Triangle Tennis to use CMSD courts at no charge. We do have attendees here, so do we want to ask them to come up and speak? Okay. So we do have all the documentation here. I need a motion for approval.
So moved.
Has been motioned by Mr. Sparks. Do I have a second?
Second.
Has been seconded by Dr. Shoemake. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. Now we go to item B8, consideration to approve engagement with Kimberly Alford CPA in preparation of GASB statements. Board, I need a motion for approval.
So moved.
It's been motioned by Mr. Sparks. I'll make the second. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. Now we go to consideration to approve interagency school agreement between CMSD and community counseling for after-school day treatment programs. Board, I need a motion for approval. I'll make the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Has been seconded by Dr. Shoemake. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. Now we go to, if you remember, 10 it's been removed, it's C2. And so we go to goals update. We have student attendance report. So board, do we have any questions about the student attendance report?
Not specifically about that report, but just kudos to Dr. Hickman and his staff for putting together those very interesting 11 points on why it's so important for students to be in school. And I did have a couple of questions, but we're going to work on those offline
Okay.
about attendance.
They're very good questions.
Okay. And if you would, just as you get the questions, just have Ms. Velma, whatever the is to post it to resources for the whole, all the board to be able
Okay.
to see. Thank you. All right, now we go to the dropout report, which is under goal C2. Board, is there any questions about this report? Okay. Now we go to our school safety report. Board, do we have any questions about the school safety report?
Again, this is something I want to talk about sort of offline, not because there's anything to hide, but we're at the beginning of the school year, and you know how I always have questions about bus, the discipline on the bus, and I'd like to drill down a little bit more into that this year, see if we can get that under control.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, and I think that's one thing that I would like to know a little bit more about is, you know, looking at a lot of the events that do occur on the bus as to, you know, with us having an independent contractor, you know, how we have all the information. I know that it's recorded as far as all the buses have video cameras and different things. So what is the procedure? Do they process it first? Do they automatically report it to us? You know, what's the handling of it?
No, and they report it to us, and we request tapes and those kind of things for verification. But one of it is you have one adult on the bus that shouldn't be looking at kids in that sense, and kids decide to do things. I know in the past you either had a recording device or a monitor, but now all buses kind of come with recording, so a lot of times you don't have a monitor or second adult. So bus situations are tough, especially when you start getting in the category of bullying. You know, that kind of cultivates it where you have a kid that's you know, quiet and they're constantly being attacked. And you know, there's many times I know I've talked to the principals where we have moved students up front, you know, by the bus and directly by the camera. Although the camera can still see all, they just think it cannot be seen in the back for some reason. But it's tough, guys. It's tough. But that's not an excuse. I mean, we're going to still keep, you know, at the front end of educating kids. I even know Ms. Smith is not here. She gave me a comprehensive bullying program for the entire school that included things on the bus, which is pretty good because it's a bunch of different layers of counseling, assemblies, you know, fight-free days, all those kind of things, all put in one. So.
All right, and
You guys all rode buses as kids.
well, and I would just say that, you know, certainly as we go through it, I would, and I mean, this is just me, but I would like to hear a little bit more of, okay, we have these different programs, but how are they being instituted? How are they being
How effective.
orchestrated every single day to make certain that not just policies are followed or events are documented, but that this is a effort that is being tackled with great tenacity.
Right, and we lose control on the bus as a district in a sense, because the people driving the bus are not necessarily certified. And now we do have trainings, we do code trainings, all those kind of things. But at the end of the day, we're lucky to have bus drivers,
Right.
without being rude.
Well, no, but I guess my thing is that, well, I totally understand that we've identified that as a problem in the district,
Right.
and we want to work to find some way of remedying it.
Mhm.
And so I guess that's what I look at is kind of going forward as to how we address it when we know it's there and it's a deficiency. How are we going to make sure that we're maximizing our efforts to work with our contractor or whatever, whether we're lucky to have bus drivers or not, they're lucky to drive our buses. It's the way I look at it. You know, so,
I
so,
agree.
so let's just, you know, I guess as we go through this, because we're early in the year and we're easy to, I guess, as you've pointed out before, it's easy to spot certain trends developing.
Oh, yeah.
And so we know kind of what fell over from last year to this year, and just, you know,
No excuses now that we know the
right,
trend.
right. Okay. So now we go to our next report, which is the teacher attendance report. Everybody's in the green. So we're doing great. Keep it up. Now, is there any question about our teacher attendance report? Okay. Now we go to staff accidents. Okay. And so we have that. Any questions about the safety report or staff accident report? Being none, we'll move to our next item, which is item 8, Office of Instruction and Assessment. We'll have a discussion and update on our special education program. Dr. Hickman?
Ms. Jones, if you can please come up. Thank you.
Welcome, Ms. Jones.
Good evening, Dr. Hickman, members of the board. Today, I bring you a brief update of Columbus Municipal School District Office of Special Programs. But before I can give you an update, I have to give you a little background history to brief the two board members who were not here. Columbus Municipal School District Office of Special Programs was audited by the Mississippi Department of Education October the 6th and 7th of 2015. The purpose of the audit was to help districts across the state improve educational results and functional outcomes for students with disabilities. During the time Mississippi Department of Education was here, we received audit findings or deficits in the following area. The areas are or were child find, discipline, delivery of services, FAIT, which stands for Free Appropriate Public Education, the LRE, the Least Restricted Environment, and Policies and Procedures. We had specific findings. Columbus Municipal School District child fine and FAIT policy was insufficient and inconsistent with IDEA and state board policy. A specific finding was that we failed to provide reevaluations within the required 3-year timeline, failure to provide reevaluations on students with a developmental delayed disability prior to their 10th birthday, paperwork not filled out correctly or completely, documentation to support the IEP committee decision, documentation to show all appropriate members were invited and or attended the IEP meeting, the present level of academic achievement and functioning performance did not provide the necessary details, failure to address all components of the IEP, annual goals were not stated in measurable terms, related services did not address the student educational needs, extended school year services were not addressed. To ensure the district was in compliance with the following specific deficits, Columbus Municipal School District first reviewed its previous policies and procedures regarding child fine and FAIT. They were reviewed to meet the IDEA and state policy and state board policy. This was completed November of 2016. In an effort to become compliant in the other following deficits area, the Office of Special Programs reviewed the procedures performed before the audit and revised them to ensure that we were providing the students the best possible appropriate services. What we did, we put procedures in place. Some of the procedures in place were that we have placed to ensure that the deficits that were identified is now, we have a checks and balance type system. During our IEP committee, once the IEP committee has met, the teachers have 3 days to submit their paperwork to our office to ensure that it is complete and correct. We also offered professional development. The types of professional development that teachers have received since November of 2015 is conducting an IEP, faith, letting them understand what is faith and how is it determined, a special education one-on-one. And the trainings that I'm specifying right now, these trainings were listed for teachers. Standard-based IEP training, Part 1 and Part 2, change of placement, the evaluation process. We also had professional development with administrators. Administrators were, the professional development provided to administrators were discipline, let's talk, AT&T, which means we're all in this together. We've also had parent meetings, and we also doing, last year, I think it was around November, the Special Education Advisory Committee was formed. That committee meets every Tuesday, the second Tuesday of every month from 4:30 to 5:30. Currently, to ensure that we're continuing to monitor and not be cited for the same deficit area. For the 2017-18 school year, the following professional development trainings are offered. We have new SPED teacher training because we do have new teachers that has been hired since our audit finding. We have monthly SLP. SLP is speech language pathologists. We meet with them monthly to ensure that they are providing services, assessments according to the policies and procedures set forth. We also have bi-weekly professional development for special education teachers. The first one started off with a series called Building Capacity, and we also have a weekly 18 meeting, and that's a meeting with my team where we sit down and see where are we. We're inspecting what we expect. So if there's a problem, we can hit it face on instead of waiting until it comes to us. Any questions?
Sure. Thank you very much for being here to give us this report. I mean, I have a few questions. But Board, do you have any questions you want to start with? Okay. Couple questions is, you'd mentioned the 2017-2018, and it's just a new question that just came up when you said that. As far as professional development and some of the other things you have going on, what type of professional development and type of training did you have last school year for 2017 or 16 and 17?
Again, because of our audit, and I came aboard in January, we started off with the series of professional development, as I stated. One of the audit findings were we were not writing our IEP goals in standard-based form. So that's a process. So we had several professional development where we're teaching teachers how to write a standard-based IEP. From that, we also talked about FAPE, because that was another audit findings, helping teachers to understand what a free appropriate public education means. Because when you look at, in some instance, when you looked at a child's IEP, it was that the child was receiving a free public education, but it wasn't appropriate. Special Education 101, again, we have several new teachers, and we just want them to understand our procedures, the procedures we have set forth and submitted to Mississippi Department of Education. Part of the audit finding was that we had procedures and policies in place, but one person was doing it this way, one person was doing it that way, so we're trying to be consistent in how we operate here.
Okay. The other question I have is, I know that I think it's around the time that you started with us, is that we did away, the recommendation was to do away with the case manager position. And so we did away with that for a year, and then we came back and it was requested that we start that program up again with case managers. So can you kind of tell working without, working with? I mean,
well, I did not work with them, but I do, from my knowledge, the previous case managers were not certified, nor did they have a special education background. And so what the district did, they eliminated the position and recreated the position to hire a certified person who, one, understands special education and be able to intelligibly talk about it if they're ever called into a meeting or if they're faced with a challenge or a situation. So they can actually talk about it, know the laws, know the policies, know the procedures, know the student.
Okay.
So, and we're working with them right now in my office. So we do have 2 case managers, and we also have a secretary. Each person in the office has a role that they play. Like our secretary, she requests records. The case manager 1, she does MCs. The case manager 2, Child Find. Again, Child Find was a major hit for the district, and so we want to narrow it down so that everybody has a point person instead of going around and saying, I can't locate this person or that person not in the office. And so we are able to tell them who is that direct contact person.
Okay. And now, as far as Child Find, I noticed advertisements that you see in the local papers being published, and so with respect to that, from the time that you're communicated to you and paperwork is submitted of, okay, this is, a person that needs, services, what is your procedure and timelines and things that go along with it?
Well, up on my route, we started the MET team, and that's the multidisciplinary evaluation team. If a parent, a teacher, or someone off the streets who know the child and thinks the child requires services, they have the right to request services. Once they request services, we fill out what is called the Child Find form. The Child Find form is submitted to my office. We meet every Monday. We have 14 days once we receive that notification to determine if testing is warranted or not. Anything that the Office of Special Programs does, it has to have data. So previously or in the past, parents could just request and say, I want testing, and we were obligated to do. But now that we have MET, and that's throughout the state of Mississippi, we have to have data to support whatever it is that we do. So it's a committee of people who determine if the data support testing or if the data does not support testing. But we have 14 days to make that decision.
Okay, and that's the 14 days from when you receive it to the time that you either render an opinion, you get services or not, or that you start an IEP. What's the...
No, MET is only for evaluation purposes.
Okay, all right. Now, if it's determined in the special education department that a person needs an IEP, I think you had answered the other, pardon?
Well, I was going to say, not an IEP if they require services.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. If they require services, how do you go about categorizing as to what services a person would be able to provide? Is it based off of what's available in our district?
No, sir. Again, as I stated, everything we do is based on an assessment.
Right.
The assessment has to dictate that that child needs that to be for us or to be an educational benefit.
Okay.
So it's not that we feel, think, or choose, or just because we offer the service, every child receives it. It's because it's an individual plan. Based on that child comprehensive assessment, it dictates, because the back page, whoever provides that assessment or writes that report, they provide recommendations. Those recommendations are the cornerstones to that child IEP.
Okay. And so an IEP, once it's determined, as you were just talking, the service that will be provided under it, I mean, I think you had said it one other time, is that the goal is to get them to a point where they would not need those services, whether it be
Right.
speech therapy or anything.
Special education is designed to close the gap for any educational deficit or weakness that a child may have. Now, again, some kids, based on their disability, will require services for life, but the goal is to close the gap, minimize the gap. And so, again, normally you will pad them up front with the accommodations, and then you slowly try to provide the kid with instructional strategy skills so that they not only they're not dependent, because we don't want to have them dependent upon them, but we want to teach them strategies in which they can use, because they themselves recognize that they have a deficit or a weakness, and they know how to close that gap themselves, become independently as possible.
Okay. All right. So, Board, do you have any other questions? One thing that I had mentioned to Dr. Hickman and to Ms. Jones is having a special meeting that we would just focus so that we could get more, participation and discussion about the special education department, some of the terminology, nomenclature, and different things, as well as be able to have, the special education committee, excuse me, that have been participating, allow them to come in and also be party to that, and also any of the stakeholders that feel like that they want to also be part of it. Because, obviously with children in the district and different things, they might also want to have a discussion about it. So, we do have protocol in place as far as how it goes, no different than a budget hearing meeting for people wanting to submit any type of questions. But, I would just ask, is that something we could do sometime here in later September? Mr. Dunn, do we have to set a date now, or is it something that once we kind of talk with Dr. Hickman and others and kind of find a date that'd be good, we can decide?
You can decide at a later date, and it's usually better not to set a date during the school board meeting. It's
Okay.
better for you to call the meeting
Okay,
so that, technically, it becomes a meeting that you would have to have an amendment to it or change to it, that you should have an action in another meeting.
okay. So that's what we'll do if it's agreeable, is we'll work with Dr. Hickman and his staff to put that together, and also be able to notify the committee members and also anyone else who's interested in being here to discuss.
I'm sorry, I want to make one more point. I heard Ms. Holmes, she was very proud that her department, for the first time in 5 years, able to close their budget. But our department as well, because upon my arrival, services was an issue. And so since I came aboard, I would like to say that for the second year in a row that we have started services at least by the first week of school. Our goal is to have it done by day one, but first week of school, I think that deserves an applaud from our staff and the way we're working
Right,
hard
absolutely, absolutely.
to get services for our
All right.
kids.
And so that would be starting all services by that time?
Yes, our
Okay.
goal is to start it on day one, but because, again, related services are not, they're contracted out, that's outside of our hands, but we make sure that we do our part, ensuring that the requisition is completed, the purchase order is in the system. We have a hard copy of the purchase order. We've sent it to the contractor, and they have it. And so then we just work with them to get their schedule together.
Okay, all right. So if you would, just as we get the time decided and then we're able to kind of communicate that out, then, we can kind of go in a little bit more in depth, as I'd mentioned to you, about some of the specifics that, as I've been here sitting on the board working, I understand a lot more of the terminology, but I'm certainly no expert in it by any stretch of the imagination. And I know some of the board members that have not been on here as long would like to hear more about it. So
Not a problem.
thank you very much for your report. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you, Dr. Hickman, for helping that get put together. Now, board, we go to our next item, which is closed determination for executive session. I need a motion to go into closed determination.
So moved.
That has been motioned by Mr. Sparks. All in favor, please signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. We'll be out shortly to make the announcement of what we're going to take up in executive session. Thank you very much for being here this evening. All right, welcome everyone back. We are now in our return to regular session before adjournment. We went into executive session for the business end of things, and we had one personnel matter released from contract. It was we went into executive session with Mr. Sparks making the motion and Dr. Shoemake making the second, and it was approved 3-0. Then we went in and we had our first personnel matter. It's released from contract. Mr. Sparks made the motion. I made the second, and it voted 3-0. Then we had our executive session minutes. We took them all as one motion. Mr. Sparks made the motion. Dr. Shoemake made the second. It was a 3-0 vote. And then we went to return to regular session. Mr. Sparks made the motion. I made the second, and it was voted 3-0. And that brings us to our last item, which is adjournment. I need a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Has been motioned by Mr. Sparks. Do I have a second?
Second.
Has been seconded by Dr. Shoemake. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. We are adjourned.